All right, welcome everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, just making sure the sound is good to go. How's everyone doing? All right, hopefully everyone is having a good month and a good week thus far. I always like to start off with a quote from like it's one of those daily inspiration type books. So for today's date, behind every behavior, there is a positive intention. And so the I guess a couple of paragraphs go on to say your belief of others' positive intentions, however, always allows you to give them the benefit of the doubt in any situation. Therefore, interactions with them will allow for interactions where you look for the positive in others, which ensures that they feel heard and understood. Communication overall is what it talks about, and I thought that would be fitting for this particular day. And then also the word beliefs. So let me bring up the PowerPoint. I believe we have an icebreaker to start off with. Let's see. We'll get the PowerPoint on the screen in just a second. And start from the first slide. All right. And then share the screen. So again, roughly about 45 minutes, and then we can do some Q&A down in the chat area, or you can reach out. I'll put my LinkedIn link towards the end of the presentation, and we can connect from there. Let's see, share screen. And it's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. Let's try that again. All right, there we go. Now you should be able to see it. So welcome everyone. My name is Jason Simpson. I'm a accredited financial counselor and also a financial coach. I've been in finance since 1999, give or take. Different types of roles within the financial industry, retirement, call center, retail banking, investment side of banking, and several different nonprofits, some volunteer, and then more recently branching off. And after the pandemic, like a lot of folks, just rethinking the way forward. And so I thought, went out and got a couple of certificates, and my undergrad is in poli-sci, and politics and finance are pretty interconnected, similar to our mental well-being and finances. There's links there. And so this presentation is on financial mindfulness, and we'll go to the next slide. So a quick icebreaker. If you could have any unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, what would you pick? And then some feedback that I've gotten on this is like, just one thing. So I did allow myself to pick two. So definitely allow for a little bit of flexibility. And so my number one thing I initially said, without giving it too much thought, was just water, right? and then from there you can do a lot with water. So unlimited supply. So no longer having to pay for any type of processed water like sparkling water with bubblies and all that stuff, or bottled water, or having 5-gallon things of water shipped to the house on a monthly subscription. High quality water coming through the entire house, and things like that. So water was my thing. And then my follow-up to that was green apples. So I'm a big fan of green apples. So I'm curious what your one unlimited supply. Some things that come up for folks are, I've heard potatoes, and I've heard coconut, right? So some people say, my favorite pet, whatever, traveling is one that comes up. And then also money. So definitely down below, let me know what your one thing is, and we'll go on to the next slide. Sometimes it is hard to choose one, as we all know. So here are the 4 areas that we're going to cover, just overall acknowledging beliefs, doing the recall back to the quote, building abundance mindset, facing your finances, and also some overall smart planning. And so in that quote, just recall your belief of others' positive intentions, right? So perhaps positive intentions with your own finances, right? And so some may have seen this before. You may recognize it. So there's about 8 key different areas that we all work through. The one that we're here today is financial, but financial covers a lot of different areas, right? So you have your overall career, coming out of the 2020 pandemic, family, right? Perhaps physical, right? Getting outside, fresh air, going for runs or walking, being more social, just meeting outside in the park, group texts, right? Just group calls, just kind of checking on our friends and family, and sometimes, our chosen family, like our extended family. So, and then there's the other. So the other category allows for thinking outside the box, some of that creativity. I'm not a big fan of being boxed in. Sometimes our jobs or our lives, our job as in job, right? The acronym, sometimes you feel boxed in, right? And that creativity doesn't get a chance to blossom. So other could be spirituality, right? Or religious belief, or none of the above, right? It could be whatever you want, for other. And then there's a few more as we go around. Can't forget fun, right? Fun is important. Sometimes, Sunday fun day, incorporating fun into the workplace. There's organizations out there that say they have fun in their, I don't know, I guess, values, but do they really, live and breathe that, right? When you spend time in the organization, does it feel like it's fun in there, right? Is there sunshine coming through, right? Or is there very few regular daylight coming through? Are there plants, things like that, right? Relationships, right? Of course, you have work, and in your home life, as we go around, finances, personal growth, and then health and fitness. All right. So moving on, we have, just some finishing the thoughts. These are just some mantras. Is there a particular mantra that sticks out for you? And so, a lot of times we're always like, never do this with your money, right? Or you should always do that. As soon as you get paid, you should go to the grocery store, right? The best way to help my children financially is to, and you kind of fill in the blank. I could never afford to, perhaps travel, you know, um, to the places I wanted to, or I will always, right? So these are kind of that never and always, these absolutes, right? And so there is that middle ground where you can say, instead of me flying to a beach, maybe we can drive there as that workaround. And so in finance, sometimes we're trying to get to a goal and we need, or we feel stuck and we just need that slight workaround to keep the momentum going. And then of course, number 7, if there's one that you think about, drop it in the chat, right? Let me know what your, mantra are. Sometimes when I do this presentation, I get some biblical verses, right? And so if spirituality or religious is important to you, what's that one particular verse that resonates with you? And then with those mantras, perhaps from our money history, there may be some type of money script, right? Some deep rooted belief that, hey, money has always been this type of thing, like my net worth equals my self-worth. Or if you're like me, I am a combination of two. But if you're unsure, what your money script is, reach out to me and we'll walk you through. It's a quick kind of survey, and we'll walk you through it, and then we'll just have a deeper conversation from there. And so it may not just be one, right? It could be, 2 different ones. So perhaps like myself, I'm slightly money avoidance, and I believe the other one, let's see if I have my notes from where I took it. I am money avoidance, and let's see. Actually, money avoidance was like my third, because they're ranked 1 through 4. It's kind of how I did it. And so money vigilance was my top one, and then money worship, and then money avoidance, and then money status was like the last one for me. And so when you're thinking about these 4 quadrants, similar, to the money wheel, it's not about judgment, right? It's just about, hey, increasing or raising awareness. And so, for example, money avoidance, I do not deserve money, or rich people are greedy, right? You may have these scripts for way back when. And then for money worship, things would get better if I had more money, or more money will make you happier, right? And so those are 2 at the top. And then you also have the money status and money vigilance. So with money status, your self-worth equals your net worth, or if something is not considered the best, it is not worth buying, right? And sometimes if you talk to, say, like, for example, a chef may go into a grocery store, and you go into a grocery store and they're like, oh, I'm going to get, maybe I get all the brand name stuff. And then the chef is like, you just need fresh ingredients. And then for certain things, you can do the store brand, right? It's cheaper, and it's more about how the technique, how it's cooked, the care and love that goes into it, that kind of determines a little bit of the outcome. And then for the last one, money vigilance, you should not tell others how much you have or make, or our money should be saved, not spent. So these are some examples, and so think about where yours originates from, and kind of jot it down. And so when you're thinking about, money beliefs, our belief system is kind of that framework of how we take in the world, that lens, some people say. And so from there, we develop routines and habits. And then once a habit is ingrained, it is very, very challenging, but not impossible, to course correct, right? And so small changes, and sometimes taking that first step, is the biggest hurdle, which can also just be, hey, reaching out to someone like myself, a financial planner or coach. And then once you do that, it could be easier, and you get the momentum going. And so one of the things is just utilizing that power of, that the habitual habit loop, right? And so that gets you into kind of perhaps some things that you're already doing, or maybe there was a time where you were really, um, in cruise control with your finances, and maybe you just kind of drifted away from that due to perhaps the recent pandemic and things like that. And so what we want to do is just kind of increase that awareness, identify behaviors that you want to change, because you're the expert in your own lives, right? And so myself as a financial professional, we make suggestions, and we just have a conversation, and then we walk through a few steps, right? How do we communicate those behaviors, right? Just getting them down. Sometimes there's blind spots and we're not aware of certain patterns, right? Like going into the grocery store hungry, some of the psychology around, okay, if you're in the grocery store hungry, and the way it's organized, it's organized in a way that benefits the grocery store, right, chains, right? Instead of myself as a consumer and what I'm going to cook for the next couple days, week. Perhaps you do grocery shopping on a like almost a monthly basis. So we'll walk through that, and then we just kind of look through and talk through kind of the abundance cycle, right? Doing some automation to help reduce stress, starting small, maybe setting up some automatic increases, perhaps with long-term savings type of accounts, and then really digging into some of those perhaps mantras that came up from you earlier, or some of the perhaps limiting beliefs. I know in my own life, I've had some limiting beliefs, and it's just trying to identify them and break through perhaps some of those, or actually testing, right? Because you kind of test the belief. You're like, oh, it wasn't exactly what I, or, thought it was, or it wasn't that hard, or wasn't that frustrating, or I never look at my statements because I just don't want to see, I don't want to look at my bank account because I just don't want to see, all the transactions, that I know that I completed this particular month. So you definitely want to, perhaps work with a coach. And then one of the activities that we can go through is just my, excellent life, right? Really dreaming about what's really, really, really important to you, right? What do you want to accomplish, perhaps in the next 90 days, right? And or by this time next year, what do you want to have? And a couple other questions that will help out is, what is happening now for you, right? What did you just finish? Maybe we can write that down and kind of put, a nice little, if you're into check boxes, put a checkbox next to it. If you're into, striking it out, you can write it down. Well, I guess striking it out kind of defeats it, but I'm a big fan of check boxes. But whatever works for you, something that perhaps you've already or about to accomplish, that's part of your excellent life, right? It's not about perfection. And sometimes folks in this activity will also jot down some of the things that they're grateful for. So you could put a few items that, yeah, I'm very grateful for my, my blessings, right? Health, and then there's the quote out there: health is your kind of first wealth. And it's ties into your definition of success, right? What my definition of success is may be different than what your definition of success is. And so it's not about right or wrong. It's definitely not about comparing myself against others, because what works for me may not work for someone else. And so what we're really doing is getting into a little bit of that long-term planning, in the next 10 years, looking out in the future. Think about where you want to live. Do you want to be your own boss? Do you want to do a little bit of, working for someone, or perhaps you want to own a farm? And then I recently spoke to a client, and they were kind enough to clearly explain to me the difference between a farm and a mini farm. So evidently less than 10 acres is a mini farm versus a farm. And maybe you're in the beginning of starting, a family, or you're about to get married, or you just got married, right? Congratulations if you just got married. It's a good opportunity to talk about couples and finance. And then there's great programs. I've in the past have worked with togetherprogram.org for couples. It is a University of Maryland extension program. So I believe there's a little bit of requirement to be in Maryland, but there may be a similar program in your state that works, with primarily with couples, right? And so you're in a workshop, sometimes it's in person or online, whichever sometimes works best for your schedule. And the golden nugget is that you're in a workshop with other couples and you get to talk about finances, because you really can't do that with your neighbors, perhaps with some of your family members. You just maybe don't feel comfortable, or, oh, we don't talk about money. That could be one of the things. In our family, we don't talk about money, and it could be one of those unspoken things. So, and then always the last one, leaving a little wiggle room for that creativity. What other things are important, right? Maybe there's something on the screen that you just didn't have space for, that you are thinking about. So with this, let me go back a slide. So one of the things that you can do is looking at the image of the past, now, and future. You can always, fold a piece of paper into thirds, right? So it's like accordion style, right? Three. And so the middle one could be now, future, it could be past. And or we can look at turning that into, kind of the past could be, something that you already accomplished. Now could be particularly, 18 months, no more than 24 months. And now could also be your spending plan budget, right? And kind of jotting down some of that information if you already have one. And then future, ideally future, you're looking out 7 years, perhaps 10 years out. So kind of like that vision of retirement, perhaps location, things like that. So that's kind of a preview of a deeper dive into that activity. And then what we're doing here is we're just verifying, clarifying, right? Our core. I think with values, there's about almost 200 or so values, maybe more. So we really want to get down to our core values. It could be, something like family, and then our feelings or emotions, right? Our attitude. And why this is so important is because I found myself halfway into a project, and then I realized I perhaps didn't fit in here, or I realized, I really didn't like working the fast pace of like that banking environment, right? It was good experience. And so I'm very grateful, right? Put that on my grateful list for that experience. But my career, going back to the wheel of life, I didn't want to take my career in that direction. And so that's my value bubbling to the surface. And go to, okay, and we talked about some of the items up here. One thing I wanted to highlight is, the support system, right? That freedom and independence and overall peace of mind, right? And so just peace of mind, you can't really put a price tag on that. It's, just being able to have a quiet place to kind of hear yourself think. Some of my therapists or friends in the psychology field call it psychological air, like just having that space to think or study, right? Very similar. Some people need music when they study, or need to have some type of soft noise in the background. Same thing when you sleep. And so overall we're driving towards, what are your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, right? And so this gets into your compass. We're looking for that underlying purpose, right? So we've clarified the values, and just kind of deciding, what do we want to accomplish the rest of this quarter, the rest of first half of this year, between now and the next milestone, which could be the next holiday, could be between now and my birthday, whatever works best for you. And then, looking at those underlying goals, those micro steps, that gives us direction, and helps us with that momentum, right? And the goals, of course, tie in with our overall purpose, right? I work in finance because I enjoy the conversations, interesting things. Money is connected to a lot of different areas of our life, and so money is a store of value, right? And so from there, just also our habits, and our emotions. And then changing those habits are hard, right? They're challenging. And so values, are the basis for the decisions we make regarding goals. And, again, those deep-rooted beliefs we have about what is good and desirable are called values. And again, this is not really about, kind of that good and bad, those dynamics, because that gets into a little bit of judgment. And so this is all about just increasing and raising awareness. And then overall, we just want to honor, right, and empower. And so that empower acronym, that again does a deep dive into my financial counseling service. And so we'll walk through this acronym and get a sense of, where things are at with the monthly budget. Of course, tie in, those hopes, dreams, and aspirations. And then we'll put a plan on paper to pay in full consumer debt. And then, of course, offload risk. And, so working with if you're working with a financial advisor, sometimes you can also, like a certified financial planner, you could also work with someone like myself, who's a financial coach. And so kind of working together. And then we walk through the rest of the empower. So if you're interested, if that sounds like something that may work for you, reach out. I know the R gets into what we mentioned before, which is the overall like retirement planning, or long-term planning, and then reach out for information on the rest. So here's a quick walkthrough of SMART goals. And again, we have nothing new here, right, with SMART goals. And it's just my version of doing this is pulling out a calendar, writing down on the calendar somewhere around the date of perhaps when you want to accomplish it, and working backwards through the micro steps that are going to get me to the larger goal, right? And so the best goals are personal. They reflect what we really want and need. Again, that want and need ties in with our overall spending plan budget. A lot of times, I want a lot of things, with the increase of online shopping, but do I need all those things, right? Or do I need them in the next week or this month, right? And so we want to get clarity, right? We want to check in for any options that we haven't thought about, or obstacles, right? Are there any obstacles on the horizon? And that helps us with, the attainment, and is it relevant? And then, of course, putting it on a calendar automatically ties it in with time bound. So here's a couple example, right? We're gonna get it out of our head, get it on paper or Excel if you prefer Excel. And then from there, sometimes writing it down is great. I'm a big fan of index note cards. I color code them so you can get different, you can get like yellow, green, I think there's red, and different colors and sizes. And so you can work with both what's going to be most beneficial for you, right? And then we're just going to kind of have a conversation, list out a couple steps, any challenges that you foresee. Again, thinking back to that paper and fold it into thirds, right? So you got that short term on the left, you got that long term on the far right, and then in the middle, you have that intermediate, and that's where you can write your values, and then underneath, your core values, you could put a few of the goals that you have coming up. And then we could also, in the intermediate at the bottom, go through some of our debt. And I have 8 variables that help us with organizing kind of a dashboard for our debt, and then putting a plan on paper to get that down. And then on this here, right? So you have my smart savings goal, because I think, earning money and then spending it, right? And so that middle piece where we save it, and then get to a place where either you can donate it or tithe it or charity, right? But if once you earn it, it's easy to spend it, and it's really that saving piece in the middle. Like, what are we doing with it when it's in our sandbox, so that it doesn't slide through our hands like sand. So here's a good example. Like each month, I will say blank. At the end of blank months, I will have saved a certain dollar amount, perhaps for my emergency savings or go-to fund or rainy day fund, for incidentals, like in this case, this one's connected to like a home purchase. So like a appraisal and inspection, right? Obtain a pre-approval letter, right? Visit my bank's website. A lot of times the banks are doing a better job about providing some tools, providing at least one of the credit reports. So you have Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Sometimes the banks don't provide, your bank may not provide all 3. If yours does, let me know down in the comments. But usually it's just one or the other. So just one of them. And then they have tools that also can help you categorize your expenses. And then they color coded, because some of us are more visual folks. And then in closing, here are some resources, right? So I'm not here to really endorse a particular app or website. I am aware of a lot of them out there. Being a student in the game, I do my best to keep up with these apps, but it is becoming challenging. And so, there's the saying, our cell phones are the most secure until you start really putting a bunch of apps on it, right? So that's why it's a good practice to use that offload feature, so that if you're not using a particular app, it takes it off your phone, right? But there's a lot of financial apps out there. I'll be curious which one you utilize, and more importantly, why you utilize it. I think other folks would be very interested in hearing about that. And then here are some other seminars, right? So I can do like a working session, and then there's a Green Path, which is like my debt pay down series, and that gets into, because paying down debt does take time, right? Unfortunately, it's very easy to charge up debt. I'm definitely guilty of that. I've done that. So much so, I've done it twice. And so I promised myself I would put a system around myself to protect me from my own internal weather and beliefs and money script system, and also from the sales and marketing. So if that is something that resonates with you, definitely reach out. It's about, I think that one has about, that was a little bit more longer term. And so the check-ins are more spaced out, because it does take usually about 3 to 5 years consistently paying, to depending on the dollar amount, right? So in the end, I know there's questions. There's a lot of information to go through. There's a couple of activities. If this is of interest, reach out to me. Just log into your LinkedIn account, send me an inquiry, and we'll get you on the calendar. I think even in my LinkedIn, there is access to like my scheduling calendar. And then usually I like to set aside 90 minutes for my initial consultation. But if it's just like a quick introductory type call, we can set aside, I would say, at least 20 minutes, 15 to 25 minutes, something like that. But that would be in my scheduling. So reach out. My name is Jason Simpson. I'm a accredited financial counselor, financial coach, and I am also open to visiting and doing in-person workshops. So just let me know. Thanks. Have a great day and safe travels.